Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my April reading wrap up. I'm so excited to be diving into this with you guys. Just in case this is your first wrap up with me, if you're brand new here, well, number one, welcome. Thanks for stumbling across my little corner of romance booktube. This isn't going to be a rehash of every book that I've read in April. This is just going to be my stats, like the tropes that are most read, how many books I read, pages read, stuff like that. And then I'm going to go over my 5 favorite reads of the month, the ones that I will not stop talking about that I'm so excited to share with you. But if you'd like to know about every book that I've read this month, I have a playlist up here where I do weekly wrap-ups where I go in depth about every book that I read because I like to review everything. But this one is just going to be diving into the favorites. So still a great one for you to be at, and we're happy to have you here. But first up, we will dive into the stats and then we'll get into it. I have my cute little notebook here, just made this. I also just got back from the North Iowa Book Bash. So, but I hustled my way home and I was like, oh, I still want to film this video tonight, but the light is fading on me. So we can't dilly-dally around. We got to go here. So this month I got through 39 books. And there was 12,924 pages in those books. So I did feel a tiny bit disappointed in myself for some of these because I was sure that April was going to be a super strong reading month. But you'll see with a couple of my books that are my favorites, like they're pretty chunky books and it's only me who gets down on myself. Nobody else does. But there's so many good books to read and I wish that I'd gotten through more, but that's okay. That's how it goes. For format-wise, 16 of these were physical books, 12 of them were audiobooks, 15 were e-readers, and 9 of them were ARCs. So I should say Kindle books is where I should say there was 15 of those. So the way that I do this is that some of these double up because sometimes I am listening to a book that I also switch between reading. So if you notice that the numbers don't quite match up, that's because sometimes I'm double dipping. One of the ways I do get through a lot of books is that I'm very willing to switch between formats for whatever helps me read the fastest. Like, it doesn't matter. Whatever's helping me do it, we do it. The ratings of these books were, I had 3 6-star reads, one of those being a new book, which we'll talk about shortly, and 2 of them being rereads that I did. I had 4 books that were 5-star reads, 2 that were 4.5, 19 that were 4 stars, so definitely where everything was centered this month. 5 of them were 3.5, 3 were 3 stars, and I had 1 2.5, 1 2-star, and 1 DNF actually. Now, I don't usually like go into details about this, but I haven't talked about this DNF yet because it just happened. And it actually was a fan fiction, one of my fan fictions. Again, we'll talk about that more in depth in the weekly wrap up that I do about that one, but it just really disappointed me right at the end. And I was like, we're just leaving it. We're leaving it. The subgenres of these books were 15 contemporaries, 3 dark, 1 dystopian, 2 erotic, 3 fanfiction, 6 fantasy, 7 historicals, and 2 paranormals. So I really read quite the spread this month, and that makes me quite happy. The top 5 tropes that I was reading within this month were pretty cool. Wait till you see this. So my tropes, like there are certain tropes that literally show up every single month. If you've been around a while, you'll know that. And 2 of those for me are age gap and forced proximity. Those have been in the top tropes of every single month this year. I have favorites, okay? I have things that I get drawn to. Also, enemies to lovers. That one is a pretty frequent guest. As well as fated mates. I love reading fated mate romances, and often, you know, fantasy and paranormal romances lead us to fated mates, so no surprise there. The one that is new to the list here is actually virgin. So I think part of it too is that I'm actually tracking the virgin trope now, and when I count it as a virgin trope, it really is one where like there is like a mention of it or it's like in the plot. And actually a couple of the books that I have in my wrap up had that. And I like it. I like it. I especially like when there are male virgins, and we'll talk about one of those this month. But yeah, I just really, I like reading the virgin trope, especially when it's either used in a sexy way or it's actually like not made a big deal of it at all, which is the case for one of my favorite books this month. So we're going to dive right into those right now so that I can gush about my favorite books. And the first book of the month that was a favorite was The Tryst by Lauren Blakely. I've already talked about this many times since I read it at the beginning of April. I can't believe it's only this month that I read it because I just had the absolute best time reading this book. I was lucky enough to get a physical, like, early copy of this from Candy Cane PR sent to me, and I'm so thankful. I want to read the other books in this series, but this series is actually called like the Virgin Society, and it's just this group of friends that they're all virgins. They're not like super young, naive. They're women in their mid to late 20s who are virgins, and so I really loved that. And this one also is an ex-boyfriend's father romance. But what I also love about it is that they didn't really date for a long time, and obviously because she's a virgin, like she had never had sex with this, with this ex-boyfriend. They had just dated in college for a short amount of time because like their mothers wanted them to be together. They're both from wealthy families. So our heroine goes to this conference for her work where she is actually a like makeup blogger, and she's created like an app. And she goes by a different name, like on this app that is different from her own because her mother is actually very famous and she wants to make her own way outside of what her mom does. Anyway, so she ends up having this tryst with this man named, I think his name is Nick, and super sexy older man. They have this hot one night stand. He lives in the UK, she lives in New York, so they don't think they'll see each other again, but they do end up texting back and forth and talking, and they form this like really great friendship / they're still like really flirting pretty hard with each other too. It's really cute. And so when he ends up coming to New York for business, and also to maybe move part of his business to the US because his son lives there, he discovers that not only does his son know this woman, whom he didn't tell that he had a 21-year-old son, but that they had actually dated each other before. And so now we're in a pickle. But I really love how Lauren Blakely had the conflict work out in this one. It was not like overly dramatic or like over the top, and I really, really appreciated that about this book, and that's just what made this one shine for me. I enjoyed it so much. So yeah, this was a 5-star read. It was a 3.5 on my spice scale, and the tropes being one night stand, age gap, ex's dad, and yeah, our heroine was a virgin. That's the other thing, like the way this happens on their one night stand, she's like, I really wasn't saving this for anyone. I just haven't felt this kind of chemistry with anyone before, and boy, does he take care of her real good. It was a great time. So highly, highly recommend this. Then we had a historical to chat about, and this is No Rest for the Wicked by Lauren Smith. This is a pirates romance. This is book 1 in a series, The Pirates of King's Landing, and I love this. I listened to the audiobook for this one, and this one has our heroine, Roberta Harcourt, and she's trapped on a ship with pirates. So her father's ship was attacked, and Roberta ends up being an unwilling guest of Captain Dominic Gray, so Captain Dom, and so her and her maidservant ended up disguising as cabin boys, and so when the ship got taken over, they got taken with it, and they pretty soon the captain figures out that she is a woman, and he allows her to continue dressing as a boy so that she doesn't draw attention, but he makes her stay in his cabin. She does end up sleeping on the floor, much to his chagrin. He tries to get her to sleep in bed with him, but she knows ships pretty well. She's traveled with her father quite a bit, and so she actually just fits in with his crew very well. And when some certain things are revealed, and there is also a pirate who's even worse and more evil than Dom is coming after him, they have to go about some more subterfuge to get free of this evil pirate. So the reasons for for Dom becoming a pirate are also not as simple as they seem. This was very touching, very heartrending. There are some trigger warnings in this because of that past that Dom has and what happened to him as a child. Trigger warnings are heavily implied that he was raped as a young boy when he was taken by pirates. But the way this one played out was just so sweet. Like, this was so great. I want to read more by Lauren Smith. And the next one in this series doesn't have an audiobook though, so I've been waiting on it. But the hero is set up really well for that one in this one, and I really want to read it. So yeah, this one was a 4.5 star for me. It was a 2.5 on the spice scale. We have a morally gray hero. There's a bit of captive, but like not super intense. I considered this like a road trip too, you know, because they're not like, you know, like what they're on the sea, but I don't know. I call this a road trip as well. So I loved that about it. But yeah, this cover is gorgeous. This book was a great time. And if you love pirates and historical romance, I highly recommend it. It also didn't have like a third act breakup really at all. I mean, they don't think they'll get to be together just because of their differences in life, but it works out wonderfully. Loved it. All right. Then we have this brick of a book that I read like in one sitting, I think. Geez, it was intense, guys. It was intense. And that is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. This is one of 2 books that that Carissa Broadbent had come out this month, and I just didn't have time to squeeze in Slaying the Vampire Conqueror yet, but I will get to it. I can't wait to read it. But this was book 2 in The Crowns of Nyaxia. This is also book 2 in the, I always forget, is this the Nightborn or the Shadowborn? I think this is the Nightborn. The House of Night? Yeah, the House of Night. So I've explained this a few times, but there will be 6 books in this series, but every 2 books are a duet, and they'll be about a different house. So this one was the House of Night, and this one is about Rain and Aurea, and I don't want to spoil anything for the first book, but that one was one of my favorite books in March, and this was one of my favorite books in April. I'm sad we won't have more in this world, I mean besides Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, but I'm sad we won't have more of this one, because I'm pretty sure I know who the next heroine is going to be in the next duet, and I can't wait to read her. But Carissa will be taking some maternity leave, which is wonderful. I mean, absolutely, that's wonderful. And her books are amazing, and I hope that many, many more people will be caught up to her books by the time she releases more. She is just blowing everyone out of the water this year. It's amazing. But yeah, this continues pretty much right where the first book left off. So if you read that, you know there was kind of sort of a, like, there was a cliffhanger for our couple and like how they were going to go forward. There were betrayals all over the place. And so it kind of steps us back a little bit. There are a lot of reveals that come out about the heroine and her lineage and her past. And it was just handled so, so well. And the way that our hero grovels, but also the way things are revealed to our heroine so she understands more the scope of what's going on, I thought was so powerful. So yeah, I really, really loved this one. This one was a 5-star read for me. It was a 2.5 on the spice scale. It is like, it was a slow burn in the first one, and it's a slow burn in this one because we have to rebuild trust. Some trust that didn't even fully exist in the first one yet. And now we're at a whole nother level. And so the way the tropes have changed in this one a little bit is it's still an enemies to lovers, but it's also now we're in a marriage of convenience as well. So that is kind of the one like tiny spoiler if you don't know from the first one at all. Like, events happen and now we're in a marriage of convenience for our couple. And yeah, so much gets revealed. Just Carissa Broadbent is so amazing. I love it. So I'm so happy to be able to recommend this one as well. I just loved it. Okay, then you guys know this one had to show up, okay, because she's always at the top of my list and in my favorites of the year. So we have my one and only new 6-star read this month was Grimm and Barrett by Juliet Cross. I was lucky enough to get to read an advanced reader copy of this, of which there was very few this time around. She really held this one close to the chest, which she should, because if you're going to read this series, you're going to read this book. She doesn't have to put in the same work as she did before, but boy does she, because this book was amazing. I wrote a very like detailed review on Goodreads for this one. I don't want to spoil this book for anyone, but also I feel like it isn't quite the type of book that there are spoilers for. Like, yeah, there's things that I could spoil in it for you, but Henry and Clara, we've been waiting for them. We know what a beautiful couple they could be together. We know Clara is bold and sweet and so kind. And she really shows how kindness can be a superpower in this. Like, move over Cinderella with your have faith and be kind, like Clara is kindness. And getting to see this last sister who's been so patient and loving kind of have a little bit of a moment in the beginning where she's like, time's up, Henry. You know, I've made this joke that like Reuben had a time's up moment for Jules in Resting Witch Face, and in Grimm and Barrett, Clara kind of has a like, okay, I've been patient, I've waited, it's time for me to make a move. And she doesn't, like, yes, she makes a move, but it's also about like Henry has a lot of fears, as some of our Grimms do, about if they'll be able to be a good partner, if they could have someone that they can be themselves with, or might they hurt them, or could bad things happen. And if you've read Always Practice Safe Hex, I mean, Gareth, he had a very tight control on that, but when his monster would come out, some bad things could happen. And if Livy wouldn't have been able to handle that, things could have went badly. And Henry, because of his power as a Grimlock, which I won't fully explain that or anything, right? We're not spoiling that. But because of what the burden is that comes with that, he's very much kept himself isolated on purpose, right? And there are reveals that are going to happen with that. But we also have Clara, who, you know, like all the couples in the series, they are fated mates. So there's just this innate rightness that we feel, that we know whatever his scariness is, whatever that burden is, Clara's going to be able to lift it. Like, she's going to be able to hold it because she's his fated mate. It's going to work, you know? And watching him come to trust that and then be able to fully like embrace it, it's very beautiful. I will say, like, their love, like, it comes fast. That might be something that people push back against. But those of us who've been reading through the series, like, the foreplay's been happening. The stuff has been going on. Like, we don't need it to take all day. Like, we want them to be together. We want to see it happen. And we also want to see the big, warm, fuzzy, happily ever after for all of the Savoy sisters. And you 1000% will get that. If you love these sisters, you will tear up and you will be in a puddle, because Juliet brings it home for us. Okay, she brings it home for us, and it's beautiful. So 6 stars from me. It was a 3 on the spice scale. There is some fun, good stuff. We get a Tryst in the library. Oh, we get good stuff. There's cupcakes and happiness all over the place. So this one, of course, is a paranormal fated mates romance. There's Grumpy Sunshine, and I promise I share, this one has a virgin hero. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And then the last one I want to talk about as a favorite, this book may be new to me, but the author certainly is not. She's shown up on many favorites lists in the past few months. So I have The Front Runner by Elsie Silver. So I have been savoring the last few books of hers I haven't read. I only have the last one in the series and then the novella left. And I kind of wish I had read the novella by this point, because the hero in the novella definitely does have something to do in this one, but that's okay. I'm saving it to savor it later. So this one is about Stefan Dalka, who is he has like a rival farm to Gold Rush Ranch, and he's had some dust ups with Billy in previous books. Also, the man who is a jockey for him is a total creep, and we're finding out some bad stuff about him in previous books, and we're seeing how Stefan actually feels about that and how he actually reacts to it. And then we have Mira, who is a vet, both for the area, but mainly she really helps out Gold Rush Ranch, and she does actually service his ranch as well. And there's been some crazy chemistry with her, and he definitely has been goading her at different points. He really wants to take her on a date, and she's like, it's never going to happen because you're enemies with my friends. Like, it's never going to happen. But she is always there right away when he needs her for his horses. So the beginning of this book does start with a little bit of tragedy. We have a trigger warning right off the bat for animal death, okay? And so what we have is at Gold Rush Ranch, they lose a mare, and so they have an orphan foal. And at Stefan's farm, they lose a foal. So that was hard to read. We don't linger on it, but it does start off our story, because what happens is that Mira, who actually sees to both of these births, one of them, you know, both being disastrous in different ways, she tells Billy, you know, Stefan has a mother who could possibly nurse your foal. And so Billy's like, no, we can't do it. It's not going to happen. And she's like, do you want the foal to die because you have a grudge against him, or do you want to give this a go? And so Stefan agrees to have his mare nurse the foal if the foal comes to stay with him. And so of course they're like, no, we don't want to do it. And he's like, I want it to happen. And he also uses this as a chance to wheedle a couple of dates out of Mira, which she seems so hesitant to accept, but really it's because she does have this spark of feeling for him. And she's like, I don't want this spark to grow. Like, he needs to stay away from me. But, in her needing to come check on this foal pretty regularly, it also puts them in proximity a lot too. So then this is their deal. This is also listed as like, it's a small town fake dating. I would say that was a little bit of like trope dropping, because really there's only a scene of fake dating for her, like she has a like family get together where he comes as her fake date. But it's okay. Like, there's still lots of fun stuff happening here, but there really only is like one scene of fake dating in it. In the same way, right, that some of the books by Elsie Silver are listed as enemies to lovers, and they're really not. But that's okay. That's a trope thing. We don't hate it too much. I just want to let you know that if you are reading this and you see that it says a small town fake dating romance, like, it's not really fake dating, besides one scene. But I loved this. I love how Stefan is such a good man, even if he's seen as morally gray by some people. The way that he deals with Patrick for the slimy stuff he'd done, I loved. The way that the sexual tension between them was just magnificent. There also was some really great play with toy in this one. You know, I love it when it comes up. And yeah, their sexual chemistry and their connection was really, really beautiful. Like, I feel that Elsie builds that so beautiful in every book of hers I've read. And in this series, I can see why this is a lot of people's favorite. I think A False Start is the last book. That book is going to have to be really, really great to beat this one. This was excellent. So yeah, this was a 5-star read for me. It was a 3 on the spice scale. And yeah, this one, I put it more as like forced proximity, because she is going to his farm all the time to check on the foal, as well as like bad boy is what I put it as. So this does have a bit of a trigger warning for mention of previous sexual assault, as well as Stefan's mother suffered from domestic abuse, and then yeah, the animal death. So it was tough in the beginning, but I promise, as someone who animal deaths hurt me, this kind of animal death too, it is life on the farm. I know, like, those hurt me. I was raised on a farm. And I've seen animal death in this way, but in the way it's portrayed, it's not gratuitous. And it is something that if you've been raised on a farm, you will be sadly all too familiar with. And the way that they're able to make the best of it and make a beautiful matching of this mare and this foal was really beautiful. And it definitely teared me up a little bit, because I love the beauty of nature, the way that it happens. So there you guys go. Those are my stats and my favorites of the month. Let me know what your favorite reads are. Go ahead and put that down below. And if you're not subscribed already, please do that. We're getting really close to 18K, which is crazy, because that was like my goal for the end of the year. So please help us out. Give us a subscribe. I put up new videos 4 times a week. I also have a Patreon where you can support me here, or you can send a super thanks maybe if you really enjoyed this video. So thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye.